The American Disabilities Act defined a service animal as any guide dog or other animal who's individually trained to provide assistance to a person with a disability. Service animals perform some of the functions that individuals with disabilities cannot perform for themselves. So a guide dog is an example of a service animal that may assist a patient who's blind. Other types of service animals have other types of training that assist individuals with disabilities, such as a hearing impaired person who may need assistance with being alerted to sounds, or an individual who has mobility issues. So that service animal would be assisting them with helping to pick things up that they may have dropped. So there are various types of service animals depending on what the disability is.
Hi, Miss Brandon.
Hey.
Hi, is this a service animal?
Yes, it is.
What service does she provide?
I have epilepsy, and so she detects my seizures.
Okay, well, thank you for letting me know. Let me know if anything else.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
What questions can someone legally ask to determine if a dog is a service animal?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that. Per UF physician's policy, staff may ask two questions. One is the dog a service animal? And two, what task or function does that dog perform? Now, what they're not allowed to ask is to ask the patient to provide documentation. They're not allowed to ask the patient to have the dog perform the function. Oh, and by the way, the dog does not need to wear a vest.
Hi, Miss Brandon.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. Is this a service animal?
Yeah, it is.
What service does she provide?
She's my emotional support.
Okay. Unfortunately, we only allow service animals in the clinic.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
I really need her. I get so anxious at the doctor's appointment. I take her with me everywhere.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we're gonna have to ask you to leave and reschedule your appointment.
Really? Oh man, that's a bummer. Okay, all right, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Emotional support animals provide comfort to the patient just by being with them. So since they're not trained to perform any specific task or function, normally what we do is we ask the patient to remove the animal from the clinic for safety reasons. Now, if there's someone with the patient, we ask would the person that with the patient remove the animal and maybe to the car, stay with them outside until the patient finishes their visit. But they are not allowed in the clinic. If it's a nice day and the patient is alone, we will ask them sometimes if they could leave the animal in the car, as long as it's safe for the animal to be there. If the patient is alone and has no one to care for the emotional support animal while they're in their appointment, we would reschedule that appointment. We typically do that, though, as a last resort. We really try to work with patients who do present with emotional support animals because we realize how important they are to them. However, they are not allowed in clinic for safety reasons.
So when can service animals be excluded?
Well, by excluded, what we usually mean is that the animal is asked to leave. And there are some scenarios in the practices where we do actually have to ask the patient to remove the animal. One would be if it makes a mess. If that dog or service animal is not housebroken, we will not be responsible for cleaning up the mess. We expect the patient to do that. So if they're not housebroken, or if they're not under the patient's control. And what we mean by that is usually the dog will be on a leash sitting next to the patient. Occasionally they'll be held by the patient. They'll be in the patient's lap. But if they're wandering around the clinic, barking at others, that is not under control. And in that situation, we would go up to the patient and ask them to remove the animal if they cannot control it.